This is pages 65 through 71. Playing in 5-finger positions and introducing all kinds of wonderful things for you. Let's talk about this stuff. On page 65 they have rhythms for you. I don't really get into that too much. I like to use the music for this stuff. The idea is for you to be able to play the rhythm with the stems going down in the left hand and the stems going up in the right hand and play them at the same time. And it's kind of nice because in music they'll line up this way, so when you're playing notes at the same time, the notes are above each other. And so when you see notes in between, you know you're playing them at different times. I'm not going to go through all that. You can go through those rhythms. It's just be able to do that. You're going to get this in the music, and if you can learn to read the rhythms without having to worry about the notes and where you're going, that helps it a little bit. But I'd still prefer to use the music for that stuff. So I'm going to cover this kind of stuff, but I'm going to do it in the music. If you have any questions about any of the stuff that's on page 65, be sure and ask. On page 66 they have a review worksheet thingy. Knock yourself out on that. Just have a ball. You need to know the names of the notes. If you don't know the names of these notes yet, I would encourage you at this point, go back and start the book again, at least for what, page 30 or 31 or wherever the notes are, and go through these and make sure you can say the names of the notes. On page 68, they're introducing you to half steps. A half step is simply the shortest distance between any two notes in Western harmony and the kind of music that we do. Because other countries have different kinds of harmonies and other kinds of notes. I'm dealing with Western music here, like we do in the United States type stuff. So look at the keyboard. A half step is simply any two notes, this one and this one. They're next to each other. That's a half a step. All of these are half steps. When we go up by half steps like that, we call that chromatic. A fancy word, ain't it? You can go up or down by half step. We call that a chromatic passage. It's chromatic. Going up or down chromatically is what we mean, up and down by half steps. Comes in handy on page 68. They're talking about the chromatic scale. Well, going up or down by half steps. I don't teach a chromatic scale because it's not like the other scales, where like a C scale you're starting on C and ending on C, or an A scale start on A and end on A or whatever. Well, with a chromatic scale there's no starting point because you're using every key, and you can start on any key and end on any key. It doesn't matter. You're using all the keys. It's like a circle. Where does a circle start? I don't know. It's just a circle. Now it has a standard fingering, and they're showing you the finger numbers in the middle of the page there, where generally you're using third finger on the black keys and you're using 1 or 2 on the white keys, and this is both hands. This is not the only fingering there is. There are others, and when you get a chromatic passage in a piece of music, you might even use a different fingering. So it's good to know this fingering and be able to play it. Just know that there's other possibilities here too. Now on page 69 they're talking about whole steps. Well, you know what a half step is. It's the closest, and you know that 2 halves make a whole. You can figure out what a whole step is. It's 2 half steps. On a piano it means there's 1 key, white or black, in between. So here that's a whole step because it's got 1 key in between. This is a whole step because it's got 1 key in between. This is a whole step. It's got 1 key in between. This is a half step because there's no key in between. They're next to each other. It's good to know what a whole step and a half step is, because as we talk about more about intervals and chords and things later on, we need to understand whole steps and half steps, because ultimately it all breaks down to that little thing, the little things that make it up, and a half step is about as little as you can get in our music. That's as small as you can get. It's like we say, okay, what's an interval of a third? Well, technically we would talk about it as how many half steps are in it. You know, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 half steps in that third. And that comes in really handy a little later on, because no matter what the key is, what the key signature is, or whatever, you can always rely on a third and how many half steps are there. That's solid. It's like the foundation you can always go back to. On page 70 they talk about 5-finger patterns. 5 fingers, and you put them each on the key. Well, the keys are next to each other. 5-finger patterns, whoopee-doo. You want to look at the whole step and half step of them. I don't want to get into it right now, but it's like scales are a set pattern of whole steps and half steps. And that's the idea, and that's getting back to whole steps. Well, what they're talking about on these they're doing to C. The whole step and half step pattern they're talking about is because of the scale. Because a major scale, a C major scale, you have whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step. That's the pattern. If I take that pattern and start on any note on the keyboard, white or black, doesn't matter what it is, and I follow that pattern of whole steps and half steps, I am guaranteed to get a major scale. I may not know what the scale is or what the notes are, but I'm going to get a major scale. So it's like, okay, this, what did I see? Whole, half, whole, half, whole, half, whole, half. So just start on a note. Any note, don't care. Let's go with an E. I'm going to go that pattern starting on this note, and I'm going to get an E scale. So I'm going to whole, here, got to have one note in between. Whole, half, whole, half. That's a scale. Whole, half, whole, half. E major scale. It works like that everywhere. No matter what the key is, no matter what the note is, that's the pattern for a major scale. We'll come back to that a little bit later. I'm getting a little bit ahead. I don't know why they're doing this 5-finger thing. It's just the first 5 notes in a major scale. So you got a whole, half, whole. Okay, well if you're going to do that, do the whole scale as far as I'm concerned. But that's what they've done, and then they want you to put these things in these other key signatures. I don't understand that if they haven't introduced you to the key signature, but I guess if you just use the whole step and half step patterns, it doesn't matter, does it? So it's like if I go to D major and I want to know what the notes are in that finger position, I follow these whole step and half step patterns. So it's a whole, half, whole. So it's a whole, half, whole. That would be the D position. Then they have, let's pick another one. A major here. Same thing, whole, half, whole. That's the pattern. So that would be the A position. I don't really like learning these this way, but that's what the book is presenting. I would prefer you learn these by learning the scale. I have a bunch of scale videos. I cover all the major and minor scales. I would prefer you learn those scales 1 octave up and down. And generally you're going to play the scale of the key signature of the piece or pieces you're working in, and I tell you that in the videos. So I think I've been telling you, go do the C major scale video, learn the C major scale. These are the things you'll get in time, and that's fun. But it's nice to know that they do follow a set pattern of whole steps and half steps. That's important, so keep that in mind. Now on page 71, they're introducing you to eighth notes. Oh goody. An eighth note is half a quarter note. So you notice the numbers, it's like fractions. 1/4, 1/8, 1/16, 1/32. This is the way music works too. So 2 eighth notes to a quarter note. Well, if I'm counting quarter notes 1, 2, 3, 4, like in 4/4 time, where a quarter note gets a beat, an eighth note gets half a beat. I have to have some way of counting it, and there's different methods of counting this. But the book uses the one that I use. I like it. And it's putting an and in between the number. So regular quarter notes is 1, 2, 3, 4. For eighth notes, it would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. It goes twice as fast. Eighth notes go twice as fast as quarter notes. Well, and they give you examples in the middle of the page. Now at the top of the page, they tell you, they show you what a pair of eighth notes look like. A lot of times eighth notes can be beamed by beat. So if there's 4/4 time, 2 eighth notes in one beat, because you're counting eighth notes, they would beam them together in pairs. Later on, you'll see them beamed in 3s or by 4s, or you can beam them, group them according to the beat. If you have 1/8 note, they don't show you a picture of 1/8 note. It would be like a quarter note, except there's a little flag hanging down from it. That's an eighth note, a single eighth note. You'll see them eventually. We'll get there. So in the middle of the page, they give you some counting things, and you can read that and try and understand them. But I want to go over this playing in the 5-finger positions at the bottom of the page. There's 2 lines on this, and the first one, you're in C position. According to the notes, you put your little finger on C, that puts you in this position. And the right hand, the thumb's on this C, middle C, so you're in this position. Now what we're doing is we're counting eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and blah. So I'd like to do, just demonstrating this first line for you. It's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and rest and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and rest and 4 and, like so. In the second line, it's the same thing, that the hands are playing together. So it's here. How fast this goes? Well, it depends on how fast your beat is. How fast are you counting? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3. And if I go that fast, it's that. 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And the last one, you're up here. 1 and 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. And that's eighth notes. Congratulations. You know all about eighth notes. Lovely. Now let's try using some in the next few videos and see what happens.